G'day brewers, let me present to you the Coldplay Cheater beer. Inspired by this week's favourite internet meme, this beer has a sour taste, much like getting caught out at a Coldplay concert on the Kiss Cam. It also has a salty, briny texture, much like our favourite CEO's reaction to getting caught out on the Coldplay Kiss Cam. And being a mixed fermentation sour, it's got a really complex character, much like the aftermath of getting caught out on the Coldplay Kiss Cam. Today I want to talk about what went into making this beer and how you can make something similar at home. Stay tuned. So if we look now at our recipe for our Coldplay Cheater Sour, we're aiming for a 3% beer and a very low finishing gravity. We'll talk about how we get there later, but for now, we're going to note that we're starting off with 1.025 original gravity, which is quite a small gravity to begin with. We're going to get there by using 2.5 kilos of Barrett Burston malt. That's a really plain sort of two-row malt, and to that I'm going to add 200 grams of Gladfield Black Forest rye malt. What that will do is it'll add a lot of complexity. I really love the way this Black Forest rye plays with the sour notes in these beers, and the flavors that the Brett, Peter Coccus and other microbes in this mix add to the beer. Rye will also give us some more long chain sugars, which is going to give the Brett something more to chew on over time. But all the heavy lifting in this beer is going to be done in the fermentation by the Bootleg Biology Sour Solera blend. If we have a look what's actually in this Solera blend, it's a living culture propagated from our carefully managed continuous Solera fermentation. So it's got Saccharomyces, which is normal brewing yeast, Brettanomyces, which is that more funky, fruity, that's going to add more interesting fermentation character to the beer. Lactobacillus will add some souring, usually pretty quickly. Lactobacillus works quickly, but it won't ferment or it won't sour that low. Then comes in Peter Coccus. Now Peter Coccus is a bit more of a long-term marathon performer. If Lactobacillus is producing a sprint-like souring, Peter Coccus is doing the marathon. It's working slowly over time, but it will bring your pH much lower than Lactobacillus will on its own. There's also some interplay between Brettanomyces and Peter Coccus. For example, Peter Coccus over time can produce diacetyl, which comes across as a buttery, unpleasant taste in the beer. Over time, Brettanomyces will metabolize this byproduct of the Peter Coccus, again redeeming your beer from this horrible butteriness. The main takeaway is if you leave these things together long enough, Brettanomyces and Peter Coccus will clean up each other's byproducts and turn ugly, less desirable flavors into more fruity, desirable and enjoyable flavors. To give our Brettanomyces the best chance at kicking on and giving us plenty of flavor complexity, we're going to mash at 70 degrees Celsius, which will produce plenty of dextrins in the original wort. Now I often say to ignore this section because you need to work out your own salt additions based on your water, but the one exception in this case is 22 grams of table salt, sodium chloride. I add this to my gozes, which I really enjoy. I enjoy this salty, sour interplay on my tongue. I think it works really well, and I found a good level for it is about 1 gram per litre of finished beer. So in this beer, I'm going to add 22 grams of sodium chloride to the mix. And that's going to mimic a bit more of a goza style while still retaining all this colour and complexity in flavour, which you wouldn't normally associate with a goza. Alright, let's brew some beer. Once the wort is cooled, I put it into this barrel, which has already been inoculated with the Bootleg Biology Solera Barrel Blend. The idea is that this barrel acts as a little home for all the different microbes, so I don't need to go repitching every time that blend. It lives within that barrel and it takes on its own character. So let's talk about what's going on inside the barrel during fermentation. Early on, most of the activity is going to be performed by Saccharomyces, traditional beer yeast. Often in this style of beer, we might use a Belgian yeast, which will attenuate quite low and will also give us some interesting esters. Once it's digested all the simple sugars it's got access to, Saccharomyces will drop out of solution, but Brettanomyces will slowly plod along, continuing to ferment the beer. Brettanomyces secretes an enzyme which will clip long-chain dextrins into simple digestible sugars such as glucose and maltose. For this reason, Brettanomyces will continue to dry out beers with prolonged aging. So the longer this beer remains in the barrel, the drier it will become. And Brettanomyces will also continue to give it character. Younger beers are going to have more fruity, tropical, forward focus, whereas the longer these beers age, the more farmyard, horse blanket character Brettanomyces will contribute to the beer. Meanwhile, Lactobacillus is the sort of microbes you find in these gut bacteria mix like Yakult, which are meant to help your gut health. They're the sort of things that sour yogurt, and likewise they sour beer fairly quickly and efficiently at higher temperatures, ideally around 45 degrees. Lactobacillus likes to work. But it cuts out at a certain pH. It doesn't go very deep. But what does continue to sour your beer is the Pedrococcus, which is also in this Solera mix and eating away at sugars in the barrel. It will give you a more bracing sourness over time. So the long upshot of these beers is the longer they remain in the barrel, the more sour they will become and the more complexity you will get to the finished beer. Once I was happy with how the beer is tasting inside the barrel, I then bottle it, allow it some time to carbonate and serve it for Andy and Justin to taste. So I guess the takeaway today is if you're thinking about cheating at a Coldplay concert, don't. Perhaps why not try brewing one of these barrel-aged sour beers so you can enjoy the salty, sour complexity without the messy aftermath of getting caught out cheating. If you've liked this beer and followed us this far, don't forget to like, subscribe, and flick the notification bell for more content just like this. You may also be interested in this video, which shows you how to brew a hoppy, low alcohol pale ale at home so that you can enjoy that hoppy, beery goodness while staying sharp for the Kiss Cam. Keep brewing.